Yo, what's good? We are here with part 38 of Condensed Chaos by Phil Hine. Witches, wizards, warlocks, magicians, magus, and magi. Now, we touched on healing last time, so let's go the opposite end of the spectrum, and let's talk about cursing. I'm not talking about vulgar language. Strap yourselves in, let's go. Now, offensive or regressive magic is one of those areas which, while controversial, nonetheless requires looking at. A common reaction to cursing is to say that it is wrong, unethical, or incurs karmic consequences. These arguments neatly ignore the fact that cursed magic is of a most ancient lineage and often appears in its most sophisticated forms in tribal and shamanic societies. Historically, curses are thrown and recourse to other forms of retaliation are not possible. If standing up to being oppressed gets you a rifle butt in the face, then magical action might well be your only option left. It's difficult to talk about ethics and karma with someone who keeps kicking you. Again, magic is about taking responsibility for your actions. So if you do have to curse someone, be aware that A, it is the most appropriate course of action. B, you can handle the consequences, and C, you get the result you want. Remember that life situations are always going to be much more complex than any white magic or black magic dichotomies. Hence, the chaos emphasis on developing your own guidelines. Is it a curse if you cause a multiple rapist to become increasingly clumsy in his activities, so that eventually he is exposed and identified? Is it unethical to perform a requiem mass in absentia for a friend with terminal cancer who has clearly expressed to you that he wishes to die? Alright, that's quite ominous. Let's pep this up a bit. We're going to talk twin glamours, wealth and fame. Now, wealth tends to be a condition which one aspires to, or a condition which has been to varying degrees attained. Thus, one may look at one's life and say, I have wealth, or I wish I was wealthy. Before we go much further, the question of what do we mean by wealth should be dealt with. Dictionary definitions of wealth go along the lines of abundance of material resources. However, money is only one aspect of wealth magic. It is not merely about accumulating money and consumer goods. Desires can be deceptive. Before looking at the desire for wealth, let's take a look at some other manifestations of desire. Sex is a good place to start. There is a tendency to behave as though sexual desire is simple, a knee-jerk stimulus, a response which sets the heart a-pounding and hormones racing around. Desire falls upon us immediately and physically. It can be anything from a wishful glance in someone's direction to a palpable shock which leaves you gasping for breath. Yet, as we all in our introspective moments know, sexual desire is very complex, very powerful, and subject to change when you least expect it. Just when we think we are safe. A gay man suddenly finds himself wanting a woman. A straight man realizes to his horror that he finds himself unable to take his eyes off the boy next door. Sexual desire can be dangerous, and much depends on how the ego survives such transitions. Fame is another good one to examine, particularly so for me as, without appearing prideful, I know that I have, over the years, attained a degree of acclaim, a certain reputation, and, albeit within a small subculture, a degree of recognition. Now, fame has much in common with wealth. It is something which you have either attained or you aspire to, in the sense of thinking, look at so-and-so, I wish I was famous. Now, although it is entirely possible that somewhere, back in the days of my neophytehood, I may have performed an enchantment to bring fame, but as far as I know, I did at no time say to myself, by doing this, I will become famous, or I want to become a name on the occult scene. It might sound ingenious, but I did not realize for a long time that I was beginning to gain a reputation of sorts. What did I do? Firstly, I began to write. I began to write because I wanted to get occult magazines and could not afford the subscription fee. I was encouraged to write. All occult magazine editors are on the lookout for new writers. My high priestess encouraged me to write. I found that writing was an excellent way of ordering my thoughts. I began to enjoy writing. After all, who doesn't get a thrill from seeing their name in a magazine? It is even more satisfying to receive payment for writing. Secondly, I began to speak in public. The reasons why I did this are more complex. I was crap at presenting myself to people, and as I was doing a course which necessitated that I present myself to people, I deliberately put myself in a position where I had to present myself to an audience. I became the student representative for my course, which meant that I had to deal with the Student Union Council, the lecturers, and the academic board. Slowly, I began to adjust to these demands, and even more slowly, I began to enjoy it. From lectures, I jumped to doing courses and workshops, and finally began to appreciate the skills and techniques that I had been trained to utilize, albeit in a different setting. When you begin to raise your profile into the public domain, you attract attention. I was genuinely shocked when someone said to me, "Well, you do have a reputation for being such and such." Alright, we're going to stop it there, and we will return tomorrow with more Condensed Chaos. Have a good night, or morning, depends where you are in the world. Could be afternoon.